Welcome, gentle traveler, to a place where time moves slowly, where ancient paths wind through golden deserts, and where stories whisper on the warm evening breeze. Tonight, let the world around you soften and blur. Let your breathing find its natural rhythm, deep and slow, like the patient footsteps of camels crossing endless dunes. Let your thoughts drift like grains of sand carried on gentle winds, settling softly into the quiet spaces of your mind. Tonight's story comes from a time when journeys were measured not in hours, but in seasons, when travelers followed roads made only of memory and starlight, and when the greatest adventures unfolded not through haste, but through patience, observation, and the quiet courage to keep moving forward. Tonight, we walk together along the old Caravan road, a path worn smooth by 10,000 years of footsteps, a route that connected ancient cities, distant kingdoms, and the dreams of countless souls who sought something beyond the horizon. Before our journey begins, take a moment to settle yourself here in this peaceful present. Feel the softness beneath you, your bed, your pillow, the blankets that hold gentle warmth around your body. Feel the air moving in and out of your lungs, effortless and perfect, your body breathing itself without needing your attention or control. The room around you grows quiet and still. The world beyond your walls continues its endless motion, but here, now, you are suspended in a pocket of peace, a sanctuary of rest, a space where stories unfold like flowers opening slowly to the moon. Imagine, if you will, a desert at twilight. The sun has just slipped beneath the western horizon, painting the sky in layers of amber, rose, lavender, and deepening blue. The sands, which blazed golden and white under the afternoon sun, now glow soft and cool, holding the last warmth of the day in their countless grains. This is the hour when caravans make camp, when fires are lit and stories are told, when the day's journey ends and the night's rest begins. This is the hour when the desert breathes out its heat and breathes in the cool of evening, when the first stars appear like shy visitors, and when the ancient road itself seems to shimmer with the memories of all who have traveled it before. The old Caravan road stretches across the desert like a ribbon of pale earth, barely distinguishable from the sands around it, yet unmistakable to those who know how to look. It is marked not by stones or signposts, but by subtle signs, a certain smoothness to the sand, a pattern in how the wind shapes the dunes, the occasional fragment of pottery half buried and weathered smooth, telling of travelers from centuries past. This road has seen empires rise and fall. It has felt the footsteps of merchants carrying silk and spices, of pilgrims seeking sacred sites, of messengers bearing urgent news, of families migrating to new lands, of wanderers following nothing but their own restless hearts. Each traveler added their footprints to the path, and though wind and sand erased those individual marks, the road itself deepened, became more real, more present, more alive with the accumulated journeys of humanity. Our story begins with a young traveler named Layla. She stands at the edge of an ancient city as the sun sets, her small bundle of belongings resting at her feet, her eyes fixed on the western horizon, where the old Caravan road disappears into the vastness of the desert. Layla has lived all her 16 years within the walls of this city, a place of winding streets and bustling markets, of fountains that sing and gardens that bloom behind high walls. It is a good city, a safe city, a city where she knows every corner and every face. But lately, something has stirred in her heart, a longing, a curiosity, a whisper that says there is more to the world than these familiar streets. Her grandmother, old and wise, sits beside her on a low stone bench. The old woman's hands are marked by time, weathered like driftwood, gentle as they rest in her lap. She says nothing, merely sits in companionable silence, watching the sky shift through its evening colors. Finally, Layla speaks, her voice soft as silk. "Grandmother, tell me about the old caravan road. Tell me what lies beyond the desert, beyond the mountains, in the lands where the road finally ends." The grandmother smiles, a small, knowing smile. "The road does not end, child. It only transforms. In some places, it becomes a track through mountain passes. In others, a cobbled street through busy towns. In still others, it fades to nothing but a feeling, a sense of direction, a memory carried in the hearts of travelers. But it never truly ends." Layla considers this, her young mind wrestling with the concept. "But where does it go? What will I find if I follow it?" "What everyone finds on such journeys," the grandmother replies. "You will find hardship and beauty, loneliness and companionship, fear and wonder. You will find yourself reflected in strangers' eyes, in desert silence, in the stars that guide you. You will find that the world is both larger and smaller than you imagined. Larger in its vastness, smaller in how closely all its parts connect." The old woman reaches out and takes Layla's hand, holding it gently. "But mostly, dear one, you will find that the journey itself is the destination. That what changes is not the landscape, but the traveler. That home is not the place you leave or the place you reach, but the person you become along the way." Layla feels tears prick at her eyes, though she does not fully understand why. Something in her grandmother's words resonates deep within her, like a bell struck in a silent temple, sending vibrations through her entire being. "Will you try to stop me?" Layla asks, almost hoping for resistance, for some external force to make the decision for her. But the grandmother shakes her head. "The road calls whom it calls. To ignore such a call is to live always with a question, always with a wondering. Better to go, to see, to know. You can always return, child. The city will be here. I will be here, for as long as the universe allows. But your youth will not wait. Your strength will not pause. Your questions will only grow louder if left unanswered." And so it is decided, in the way such things are often decided, not through dramatic declarations, but through quiet acceptance, through the recognition that some paths must be walked, some journeys must be undertaken, some questions must be pursued, regardless of the answers they might yield. As the last light fades from the sky and the first watchfires are lit along the city walls, Layla embraces her grandmother one final time. The old woman whispers a blessing in her ear, words in an ancient language that Layla does not understand, but feels nonetheless like a protective charm settling around her shoulders. Then, with her small bundle on her back and her grandmother's blessing in her heart, Layla steps through the western gate and onto the old caravan road. The gate closes behind her with a soft thud that sounds, to her ears, like the closing of one chapter and the opening of another. The first night on the road is the hardest. Layla walks for several hours, following the pale ribbon of the path as it winds between dunes, her way lit by a moon so bright it casts shadows on the sand. Every sound startles her: the whisper of wind through desert grasses, the distant cry of a night bird, the soft shush of sand sliding down a dune's face. She has never been alone like this, never been so far from walls and people and the comfortable sounds of civilization. The desert at night is not silent. It has its own music, its own rhythms, but they are unfamiliar to her city-trained ears, and what is unfamiliar can feel threatening until it becomes known. When exhaustion finally overcomes her nervousness, Layla stops beside a large rock that provides some shelter from the wind. She spreads her blanket on the sand, lies down, and wraps herself against the cooling night air. Above her, the stars blaze in their thousands, so many and so bright that they seem close enough to touch. She thinks of her grandmother, probably sleeping now in her small room, probably dreaming. She thinks of the city, its streets quiet in the night, its markets closed and dark. She thinks of her friends, safe in their homes, perhaps wondering where she is, perhaps already forgetting that she existed. A wave of homesickness washes over her, so strong it brings fresh tears to her eyes. What has she done? Why has she left everything familiar for this vast, empty, dangerous wilderness? What madness possessed her to believe she could survive out here, alone, with only a small bundle and her grandmother's blessing? But even as these doubts swirl through her mind, another part of her, a deeper, quieter part, whispers different truths. She has not made a mistake. She is not lost. She is exactly where she needs to be, doing exactly what she needs to do. The discomfort is temporary. The fear will pass. The strangeness will become familiar. And when it does, she will be changed in ways she cannot yet imagine. With these thoughts swirling through her mind like sand in wind, Layla drifts into sleep. Her dreams are strange and vivid, visions of ancient travelers on this same road, of caravans stretching to the horizon, of cities that rise from sand and dissolve back into it, of faces both strange and somehow familiar, as though she has known them in some other life. She wakes at dawn to find the desert transformed. The night's shadows have given way to gentle golden light. The air is cool and fresh, carrying the faint scent of some desert flower she cannot name. A small lizard sits on a nearby rock, regarding her with jeweled eyes before skittering away into the stones. Layla sits up, stretches, and realizes with quiet surprise that she is not afraid. The strangeness of the night has softened in the morning light. The vast emptiness that terrified her now seems spacious rather than empty, open rather than desolate. She feels, for the first time in her life, completely free. She eats a simple breakfast from her provisions, dates and flatbread, water from her leather flask. Then she packs her blanket, shoulders her bundle, and begins walking westward, following the old caravan road deeper into the desert. The days that follow develop a rhythm. She wakes with the sun, walks through the cool morning hours, rests in whatever shade she can find during the fierce afternoon heat, then walks again in the evening until darkness and fatigue claim her. She learns to read the desert's subtle signs, where to dig for water, which plants are edible, how to predict the weather by the color of the dawn sky. She is not entirely alone on the road. Every few days, she encounters other travelers, sometimes a small caravan of merchants, sometimes a family relocating to a distant town, sometimes a lone wanderer like herself. These meetings are always courteous, often warm. The road creates a bond among those who travel it, a recognition that they are all pilgrims in the same great journey, all vulnerable to the same dangers, all dependent on the same basic kindnesses. One evening, about 2 weeks into her journey, Layla crests a dune and sees below her a larger encampment than she has yet encountered. 7 tents circle a central fire, and she counts at least 20 people moving among them. Men, women, children, servants, guards. A proper caravan, well-equipped and well-protected. She approaches cautiously, announcing her presence with a traditional greeting while still at a distance. A man steps forward, middle-aged, dressed in fine robes, his beard oiled and perfumed. This is clearly the caravan's leader, a wealthy merchant by the look of him. "Peace upon you, young traveler," he calls out. "You journey alone?" "Peace upon you," Layla responds, coming closer to the firelight. "Yes, I travel alone. I seek no trouble, only safe passage along the road." The merchant studies her for a moment, his expression thoughtful. Then he smiles and gestures toward the fire. "The road is free to all who respect it. You are welcome to share our fire and our food tonight. It is dangerous to travel alone, especially for one so young. Where do you journey?" Layla settles by the fire, accepting a bowl of stew and a cup of water. "I journey west, toward the mountains and beyond. I'm not sure what I seek. Understanding, perhaps. Experience. The answer to questions I cannot yet articulate." The merchant nods as though this makes perfect sense. "Ah, yes. I too once traveled for such reasons. Now I travel for profit, A less noble purpose, perhaps, but it keeps my family fed and my caravans moving. He laughs, a warm sound. But tell me, what news from the east? It has been 2 months since we left the western cities. And so Layla shares what little news she has from her home city, and in return listens to stories from the lands ahead, of mountain passes treacherous with snow, of valley kingdoms rich with grain, of northern cities where people speak languages strange to southern ears. As the night deepens and the conversation flows around the fire, Layla notices an old woman sitting slightly apart from the main group. She is tiny, wizened as a dried fruit, wrapped in layers of colorful cloth. Her eyes catch the firelight and seem to hold their own illumination, bright and knowing. The old woman beckons to Layla with one gnarled finger. Layla excuses herself from the merchant's conversation and moves to sit beside the elder. "You carry a blessing," the old woman says without preamble, her voice creaky but clear. "I can see it wrapped around your shoulders like a shawl. Who blessed you?" "My grandmother," Layla replies, surprised. "Before I left my city." The old woman nods. "Good, powerful. Such blessings are not light things. They carry weight, responsibility. Do you understand what you carry?" Layla shakes her head. "I don't understand any of this. I don't know why I'm here, what I'm seeking, what I hope to find." "That's because you're young," the old woman says, not unkindly. "When you're young, you think understanding comes before action. But it's the opposite. You act, and understanding follows. You journey, and meaning reveals itself along the way. You cannot think yourself into wisdom. You must live yourself into it." She reaches out and touches Layla's forehead with one finger, the gesture both light and somehow profound. The old caravan road is more than a physical path. It is a river of stories, a current of human experience stretching back to the beginning of time. When you walk this road, you walk in the footsteps of all who came before. Their journeys inform yours. Their strength lends you strength. Their courage bolsters yours. Layla feels something shift inside her at these words, some barrier cracking open, some new understanding beginning to dawn. "Are you saying the road itself is alive? Conscious?" The old woman's laugh is like dry leaves rustling. "Alive? Conscious? These words are too small for what the road is. The road is a teacher, perhaps. A crucible. A mirror. It shows you what you need to see, tests you in ways you need to be tested, transforms you in ways you cannot control but absolutely require." She leans closer, her ancient eyes boring into Layla's young ones. "You will face hardships ahead. The road is not gentle with those who walk it. But remember this: every difficulty is an offering, every challenge a gift. The road does not punish, it teaches. And those who learn its lessons well find that they become more than they were, larger than they imagined, capable of things they never dreamed possible." With these mysterious words hanging in the air between them, the old woman closes her eyes and seems to fall asleep instantly, her chin dropping to her chest, her breathing becoming slow and regular. Layla sits for a moment longer, trying to absorb what she has just heard, trying to make sense of the old woman's cryptic wisdom. Then, feeling the pull of her own exhaustion, she finds a spot near the edge of the camp, spreads her blanket, and lies down beneath the stars. That night, she dreams of the road stretching endlessly before her, transforming as she walks, sometimes sand, sometimes stone, sometimes green grass, sometimes cobbled streets. And with each transformation, she herself changes, growing older, wiser, carrying more, and yet feeling lighter, as though wisdom removes weight rather than adding it. She wakes to find the caravan already preparing to depart. The merchant offers her a place with them, protection, companionship, shared resources. It is a generous offer, and Layla is tempted. The journey would be easier, safer, less lonely. But something in her resists. The old woman's words echo in her mind. The road is a teacher, and some lessons can only be learned alone. With gratitude and some regret, Layla declines the offer. The merchant bows and wishes her well. The old woman, passing nearby, catches Layla's eye and winks, a gesture so unexpected from such a solemn figure that Layla laughs aloud. Then the caravan moves off to the south, following a branch of the old caravan road that Layla's path does not take, and she is once again alone with the desert, the sky, and her own thoughts. The weeks that follow are challenging in ways Layla could not have anticipated. The physical hardship she expected, the heat, the thirst, the endless walking, the simple diet, the hard ground at night. These she endures with increasing competence, her body growing stronger, her skills sharpening. But there are other challenges, subtler and somehow more difficult. There is the loneliness, deeper than she imagined possible. There is the silence, so profound at times that it seems to press against her ears like a physical force. There is the vastness, the scale of the desert so immense that she feels like an ant crawling across an infinite table, insignificant and exposed. And there are moments of pure fear, when she loses the road during a sandstorm and spends terrifying hours searching for it again, when her water runs dangerously low and she must trust that the next oasis marked on her crude map actually exists, when she encounters a pack of wild dogs and must stand her ground, making herself large and loud and fierce despite her trembling legs. But there are also moments of transcendent beauty. One morning, she wakes to find the desert blooming. Some rare rain has fallen in the night, and within hours, tiny flowers carpet the sand in every direction. A miracle of color and life emerging from apparent barrenness. She walks through this temporary garden feeling like she is the only human in the world, blessed to witness this secret beauty. Another evening, she reaches the top of a particularly high dune just as the sun sets, and the view that spreads before her, layer upon layer of dunes, each one casting a shadow, creating a landscape of light and dark that shifts and flows like an ocean frozen in the instant before a wave breaks, takes her breath away. She stands there until the stars emerge, weeping without quite knowing why, feeling something vast and wordless moving through her. One night, camped beside a small spring, she is visited by a desert fox. The animal approaches fearlessly, its enormous ears alert, its eyes bright in the firelight. They regard each other for a long moment, girl and fox, two beings sharing this space, this moment, this ancient spring that has offered water to travelers for thousands of years. The fox drinks from the spring, then settles on its haunches a few feet from Layla, watching her with what seems like curiosity. Layla speaks to it softly, telling it about her journey, her fears, her hopes. The fox listens, or seems to listen, its head tilted slightly as though considering her words. Then, as silently as it came, the fox stands and trots away into the darkness. But Layla feels less alone after this encounter, as though the desert itself has acknowledged her presence, has accepted her as one of its temporary residents. As the journey stretches from weeks into months, Layla notices changes in herself. Her body has grown lean and strong, her skin browned by the sun, her hands calloused from work. But the deeper changes are harder to articulate. She thinks differently now, slower, deeper, with less anxiety about things she cannot control. The constant questions that plagued her in the city, what does it all mean? What should I do with my life? What do people think of me? Have quieted almost to silence. They seem, from this desert perspective, like the buzzing of flies, annoying but ultimately insignificant, easily ignored once you realize they have no real power over you. She has learned to be present in a way she never was in the city. When you walk all day with nothing but sand and sky, you notice things. The way light changes from hour to hour, the patterns wind makes in sand, the subtle gradations of color in a sunset. When your survival depends on attention, you become attentive. When your only companion is your own mind, you make peace with it, or go mad. Layla chooses peace. She learns to enjoy her own company, to find her own thoughts interesting rather than troubling. She learns that silence is not emptiness, but fullness, full of possibility, full of presence, full of the subtle sounds and sensations that chatter drowns out. One day, after nearly 3 months on the road, Layla reaches the edge of the desert. The sand gradually gives way to scrubland, then to grassland, then to the foothills of mountains that rise purple and majestic in the distance. The old caravan road continues, narrowing slightly as it enters a valley between 2 hills. She camps that night at the last desert spring, drinking deeply of water that tastes of stone and time, filling her flask for the mountain passage ahead. As she sits by her small fire, she realizes that she feels sad to leave the desert. This wilderness that terrified her at first has become familiar, even beloved. She has learned its language, earned its respect, survived its tests. But the road calls her forward. The mountains wait. New landscapes, new challenges, new lessons lie ahead. At dawn, she shoulders her pack, lighter now as most of her provisions are gone, and begins the climb into the foothills. The road is steeper here, rockier, winding between boulders and stunted trees. The air grows cooler as she gains altitude, a welcome relief after months of desert heat. That first day in the mountains, she meets a shepherd boy watching over a flock of goats. He is perhaps 10 years old, skinny and sun-browned, regarding her with open curiosity. "You come from the desert?" he asks in a dialect Layla can barely understand. "Yes," she replies slowly, carefully. 3 months walking." The boy's eyes widen. "Alone?" "Alone." He considers this, chewing on a piece of grass. "You must be brave, or crazy. My father says only brave people and crazy people cross the desert alone, and it's hard to tell the difference." Layla laughs, delighted by this childish wisdom. "Your father is a wise man. What do you think I am, brave or crazy?" The boy studies her seriously, taking in her worn clothes, her weathered face, her calm eyes. "Brave," he decides finally. "Crazy people have wild eyes. Your eyes are peaceful." "Thank you," Layla says, touched by this assessment. "That might be the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me." The boy grins, then points up the valley. The road gets harder ahead, steep climbs, narrow passes, but there's a village 3 days' walk, Stonehaven, we call it, built into the cliffs. You can rest there, trade for supplies. Tell them Tomas sent you. My uncle keeps the inn. Layla thanks him and continues on, heartened by this encounter. The desert taught her solitude. Perhaps the mountains will teach her community. The boy's warning proves accurate. The road does indeed grow steeper and more challenging. There are sections where Layla must use her hands as well as her feet, scrambling over rocks, carefully navigating narrow ledges. The air grows thinner, making her breath come hard during the steep climbs. But the mountains are beautiful in ways the desert was not. Instead of sand and sky, there are forests of pine and oak, meadows bright with wildflowers, streams running cold and clear over smooth stones. She sees animals she has only heard of in stories, mountain goats leaping impossible distances between rocky outcrops, eagles soaring on thermals, once even a bear in the distance shuffling through a berry patch. The nights are cold in the mountains, requiring her to wrap in all her blankets and keep a fire burning. But the cold is clean and bracing, not harsh. And the stars, viewed from this altitude, seem close enough to touch, brilliant points of light in a darkness so deep it feels almost solid. On the 3rd day, just as the sun begins to set, Layla rounds a bend and sees Stonehaven. The boy's description did not do it justice. The village is indeed built into the cliffs, but it's more than that. The buildings seem to grow from the rock itself, their stone walls indistinguishable from the cliff face, their windows and doors like natural cavities, their roofs grass-covered, blending with the meadow above. She descends into the village as lamps are being lit, their warm glow spilling from windows cut into stone. The streets, if they can be called streets, are narrow passages between buildings, sometimes open to the sky, sometimes tunneled through the rock itself. Following the boy's directions, she finds the inn, a large, comfortable-looking building with a carved wooden sign showing a mountain goat. Inside, warmth and noise and light wash over her. People eating and drinking, talking and laughing, a fire roaring in a massive stone hearth. The innkeeper, a large man with a kind face, looks up as she enters. "Welcome, traveler. You look like you've come a long way." "From the eastern desert," Layla says. 3 months walking. Your nephew Tomas sent me, the shepherd boy in the valley." The innkeeper's face breaks into a broad smile. "Ah, Tomas, a good lad. Any friend of his is welcome here. Come, sit, eat. You look half-starved. Room and board for tonight, and we'll talk price in the morning if you want to stay longer." Layla sinks onto a bench by the fire, and within minutes, a bowl of hot stew and a cup of spiced wine are placed before her. The first bite of real food, meat and vegetables and herbs, after months of dates and flatbread nearly makes her weep. She eats, slowly, savoring every mouthful, feeling the warmth spread through her body. As she eats, she becomes aware that people are watching her, not rudely, but with curiosity. A young woman finally approaches, pulling up a stool beside her. "You crossed the desert alone?" she asks. "Truly?" Layla nods, swallowing her food. "Truly." "Why?" The question is simple, direct, genuinely curious. I wanted to see what lay beyond my city walls. I wanted to understand the world and myself. I wanted to know if I was brave enough, strong enough, to survive on my own. The young woman nods thoughtfully. "And are you? Brave enough? Strong enough?" Layla considers this. "I'm strong enough to keep walking. Whether that makes me brave or just stubborn, I'm not sure yet." This answer draws laughter from those nearby who have been listening. The young woman extends her hand. "I'm Mira. I've lived in Stonehaven all my life. I've never traveled beyond these mountains. Your journey sounds like something from a story." "All journeys are stories," Layla says, surprising herself with this wisdom that seems to come from somewhere beyond her own understanding. The question is whether we're brave enough to enter them, whether we're attentive enough to notice what happens along the way, and whether we're wise enough to understand what the journey teaches us. Mira's eyes widen. "You sound like the old teacher. He lives in a cave above the village, ancient, wise, barely speaks anymore. But when he does speak, it sounds like what you just said." Over the next few days, as Layla rests in Stonehaven, she hears more about this old teacher. People speak of him with reverence and a touch of fear, as though he possesses some knowledge or power beyond normal understanding. Some say he has lived for hundreds of years. Others say he can read thoughts, predict the future, speak with the spirits of the mountain. Layla is skeptical of such claims, but she is curious. On her 4th morning in the village, she asks Mira for directions to the old teacher's cave. "You want to visit him?" Mira looks doubtful. "He rarely sees anyone anymore. Most who climb to his cave are turned away without a word." "I'd like to try," Layla says. "Something tells me I should." Mira provides directions, a narrow path leading up from the village, marked by cairns, ending at a cave mouth high on the cliff face. The climb takes most of the morning, and Layla arrives at the cave entrance as the sun reaches its zenith. The cave mouth is large, its interior dark and cool. Layla calls out a greeting, her voice echoing in the stone chamber. For a long moment, there is no response. Then a voice speaks from the darkness, old, cracked, but surprisingly strong. "Enter, child. I've been expecting you." Layla steps into the cave, her eyes slowly adjusting to the dimness. As shapes resolve from the shadows, she sees that the cave is furnished simply but comfortably. Sleeping mat, low table, shelves carved into the stone walls holding scrolls and books, a small fire pit with embers glowing softly. And sitting beside the fire is the oldest person Layla has ever seen. His skin is like parchment, mapped with wrinkles. His hair is white and thin, his body so frail it seems he might blow away in a strong wind. But his eyes are bright and clear, holding an intelligence and awareness that makes Layla feel simultaneously seen and understood in a way she has never experienced before. "Sit," he says, gesturing to a cushion across the fire from him. "You must be tired from the climb." Layla sits, studying this remarkable old man. "You said you were expecting me. How did you know I would come?" The old teacher smiles, and his whole face transforms, becomes almost young despite its age. "The road tells me things. It whispers of those who walk it, especially those who walk it alone. It told me a young woman was coming, carrying a grandmother's blessing, seeking something she could not name. So I waited, and here you are." "What is it I'm seeking?" Layla asks, half hoping he will know, half afraid of what he might say. "That's not a question I can answer," the old teacher replies gently. "Or rather, I could tell you, but the telling would mean nothing. You must discover it yourself, and the discovery can only come through experience, through the journey itself." Layla nods slowly. This is frustrating, but it feels true in a way that easy answers would not. "Then why did you call me here? What can you give me if not answers?" "I can give you a story," the old teacher says. "And stories, properly understood, contain all the answers we need, though we must do the work of extracting them ourselves." He settles more deeply into his seat, and his eyes take on a distant look, as though he is seeing far beyond the cave walls. When he speaks again, his voice has changed, become fuller, richer, taking on a quality almost like music. "Long ago, when this world was younger, and the old caravan road was newly worn into the earth, there lived a king who was dissatisfied with his kingdom. He had everything: wealth, power, loyal subjects, beautiful palaces, but he felt incomplete, unfulfilled, as though some essential piece of his life was missing. So he disguised himself as a common merchant and set out on the old caravan road, seeking whatever he lacked. He traveled for years, experiencing hardship and beauty, loneliness and connection, fear and wonder. He learned the languages of strangers, the customs of distant lands, the wisdom of poor shepherds and wealthy scholars alike. And slowly, gradually, he began to understand. What he lacked was not something external, not more wealth or power or experience. What he lacked was presence, awareness, the ability to be fully in his own life rather than always reaching for something beyond it. The journey taught him to notice, really notice, the taste of bread, the warmth of sun, the kindness of strangers, the beauty of a sunset. It taught him that satisfaction comes not from acquiring, but from appreciating, not from achieving, but from experiencing, not from becoming, but from being. After many years, he returned to his kingdom. His subjects did not recognize him. He had changed too much, grown too deep, become too different from the restless king who had left. He did not reclaim his throne. Instead, he opened an inn along the old caravan road, where he spent the rest of his days offering food and shelter to travelers, listening to their stories, occasionally sharing his own, living simply and peacefully until he died at a very old age, content in a way he had never been as king. The old teacher falls silent, his eyes returning from whatever distant place they had been. He looks at Layla with quiet intensity. "Do you understand what this story tells you?" Layla thinks carefully before responding. That the journey changes us more than it changes where we are? That what we seek externally exists internally? That wisdom comes from attention and presence rather than from accumulation and achievement? The old teacher nods, pleased. "Yes, all of that. And also this, that transformation often requires us to lose ourselves before we can find ourselves. The king had to stop being a king to discover who he really was. You must stop being who you were in your city to discover who you will become on the road. He reaches behind him and pulls out a small object wrapped in cloth. Unwrapping it, he reveals a smooth stone, perfectly round, fitting comfortably in the palm. Its surface is the color of honey, with striations of darker and lighter shades swirling through it. "This stone was carried by that king I told you about," the old teacher says. "He picked it up from the old Caravan road on his first day of travel, when he was still confused about why he was journeying. He carried it for years, and it became smooth from the constant touch of his hand. When he opened his inn, he placed it on the mantle, where it caught the light and reminded him daily of his transformation. When he died, it passed to me, and now I give it to you." He extends the stone toward Layla. She takes it, feeling its weight, its smoothness, its warmth from his hand. "But why? I'm nobody important. I'm just a girl who decided to take a walk." "You are a walker of the old Caravan road," the old teacher says, and something in his tone makes it sound like a title, like a sacred designation. "That is far from nobody. That is someone who has chosen transformation over comfort, growth over security, presence over distraction. That is someone the road itself has recognized and claimed. Keep the stone. Let it remind you, in difficult moments, that others have walked before you, have struggled and grown and transformed. You are part of an ancient tradition, an unbroken line of seekers stretching back to the beginning of human wandering." Layla closes her hand around the stone, feeling unexpectedly moved by this gift, by this recognition. "Thank you," she whispers. The old teacher waves a dismissive hand. "Don't thank me, just walk. Keep walking, keep noticing, keep learning. That is thanks enough, to honor the road by walking it with full presence and attention." Layla stays a while longer, asking questions, receiving answers that are mostly more stories, more parables, more invitations to think and feel and understand for herself. When she finally descends back to the village, the sun is setting, painting the mountains in shades of rose and gold. That night, lying in her comfortable bed at the inn, she turns the smooth stone over and over in her hands, feeling its weight, its warmth, its history. She thinks about the old teacher's words, about the king who stopped being a king, about transformation requiring loss, about presence being the ultimate wealth. She stays in Stonehaven for another week, resting, replenishing her supplies, enjoying the companionship of Mira and the other villagers. But she knows she will leave again soon. The road calls. There are more mountains ahead, and beyond them, plains and forests and rivers and cities she has never seen. On her last evening, Mira asks, "Will you ever stop traveling? Will you ever settle somewhere?" Layla smiles. "Maybe, someday. But not yet. I'm still learning, still changing, still discovering. When the journey is complete, I'll know. The road will tell me." "I envy you," Mira says softly. "Your courage, your freedom." "You could journey too," Layla points out. "The road is open to everyone." But Mira shakes her head. "Not everyone is called. Some of us are meant to stay, to tend the hearth, to keep the home fires burning, so travelers have somewhere to return to. Your journey and my staying are both necessary, both valuable. Neither is better or worse, they're just different paths." This wisdom surprises Layla and makes her think. She has been so focused on the romance of wandering that she hadn't considered the equal value of staying, of rootedness, of being the still point around which travelers orbit. The world needs both, those who go and those who stay, those who explore and those who preserve, those who question and those who maintain. The next morning, Layla sets out again, following the old Caravan road as it winds higher into the mountains. The stone from the old teacher rides in her pocket, a comforting weight against her thigh as she walks. The high passes are challenging, steep, rocky, sometimes snowbound even in summer. There are nights when she shivers despite her fire, when her breath clouds in the air, when she doubts her ability to survive this harsh landscape. But she pushes forward, one step at a time, trusting the road, trusting herself, trusting the journey. One morning, she crests a final ridge and sees, spread out before her in the valley far below, a sight that takes her breath away. A vast plain stretches to the horizon, green and gold, crossed by rivers that shine like ribbons of light. And scattered across this plain are cities, dozens of them, hundreds perhaps, their walls and towers catching the morning sun. This is the fabled Central Plain, the heart of the old Caravan road network, where routes from every direction meet and mingle, where cultures blend and goods from across the world are traded, where ideas flow as freely as water, and change is the only constant. Layla begins the long descent, her heart light with anticipation. The desert taught her solitude and strength. The mountains taught her perseverance and wisdom. What will the plains teach her? The descent takes 3 days. With each step, the air grows warmer, the vegetation lusher, the sounds of civilization more audible. She passes through farming villages, where people tend rice paddies, and orchards heavy with fruit. She crosses bridges over rivers, where fishermen cast their nets. She follows the road as it widens, becomes more defined, develops actual signposts marking distances to various cities. On the 4th day after beginning her descent, Layla enters her first plains city. It is called Crossroads, an apt name, as 7 major caravan routes meet here. The city is enormous, easily 10 times the size of her home city in the east. Its markets overflow with goods from everywhere: silk from the northern kingdoms, spices from the southern islands, metalwork from the western mountains, books from the eastern universities. And the people! Layla has never seen such diversity. Every shade of skin, every style of dress, every language and accent imaginable. The air rings with a dozen tongues. The smells are intoxicating. Incense and cooking food, and animal dung and perfume, all mingling together in a complex olfactory symphony. Layla wanders through the markets in a daze, overwhelmed by the sheer abundance after months in the desert and mountains. Everything is available here. Anything you could want or imagine, and many things you couldn't. There are merchants selling maps to legendary cities, books written in dead languages, instruments that play themselves, birds that speak human words. She finds a modest inn in the merchant quarter and takes a room for a week, needing time to adjust to this new environment, to process the shock of moving from solitude to this intense human density. Over the following days, she explores the city methodically, learning its districts and customs, visiting its temples and libraries, watching its people go about their varied lives. She sees wealth and poverty existing side by side, great beauty and terrible ugliness, moments of profound kindness and casual cruelty. The city is complicated in ways the desert and mountains never were. There, the challenges were clear: survive, find water, keep walking. Here, the challenges are social, ethical, psychological. How to navigate a complex society, how to maintain her hard-won sense of presence amid constant stimulation, how to stay true to herself when surrounded by 1,000 different models of how to be human. One evening, sitting in a tea house, Layla overhears a conversation at the next table. 2 scholars are discussing the nature of the old caravan road, debating whether it is primarily an economic phenomenon or a cultural one, whether its importance lies in the goods it transports or the ideas it spreads. Without really intending to, Layla speaks up. Perhaps it's neither and both. Perhaps the road's importance lies not in what it carries, but in what it creates, the transformation of those who walk it. The scholars turn to look at her, surprised. One of them, an older woman with ink-stained fingers, smiles. "That's an interesting perspective. You've traveled the road?" "I'm walking it now," Layla says. "From the eastern desert, through the mountains, and now here. I plan to continue west, to see where it leads." The other scholar, a young man with intense eyes, leans forward eagerly. "And has it transformed you, as you claim it does?" Layla considers this carefully. "I'm not the person who left my city 4 months ago. That person was restless but passive, questioning but not seeking, aware of her dissatisfaction but unwilling to address it. The person I'm becoming is more active, more present, more willing to embrace uncertainty. Whether that's transformation or just growth, I'm not sure. Maybe they're the same thing. The scholars exchange glances, and the woman says, "We're part of a study circle that meets weekly to discuss philosophy, history, the nature of human experience. Would you be interested in joining us? Your perspective as an actual traveler, rather than just a scholar of travel, would be valuable." And so, Layla finds herself drawn into Crossroads' intellectual community. Once a week, she attends the study circle, where merchants and scholars and teachers and artists gather to debate ideas, share stories, challenge each other's assumptions. She listens more than she speaks at first, but gradually gains confidence, learning that her experiences on the road have given her insights that pure scholarship cannot match. She stays in Crossroads for 3 months, working part-time in a library to pay her expenses, attending the study circle, exploring the city's endless complexities. It's the longest she has stayed anywhere since leaving home, and she grows comfortable, even complacent. But one morning, she wakes with a familiar restlessness. The stone in her pocket feels heavier than usual, as though reminding her of its presence, of its meaning, of the promise she made to keep walking. She realizes that Crossroads, for all its wonders, has become another kind of comfort, another kind of cage. She is learning, yes, but she is not growing in the same way she grew in the desert, in the mountains. Those places demanded everything from her: her strength, her courage, her ability to survive. Here, she is safe, comfortable, distracted from the deeper work of transformation. That evening, she announces to the study circle that she will be leaving. They protest. She has become valued, her perspective appreciated. But she is firm. The road calls, and she must answer. Mara, the ink-stained scholar who first invited her to join the circle, walks with her to the western gate on the morning of her departure. "Will you come back?" she asks. "I don't know," Layla answers honestly. "Maybe, probably, eventually. But not soon. There's too much road ahead, too much I haven't seen, too much I still need to learn." Mara embraces her warmly. "Then walk well, learn deeply, and remember, transformation happens not just through movement, but through reflection. The experiences mean nothing if we don't take time to understand them, to integrate them, to allow them to change us." With this wisdom settling into her heart, Layla passes through the western gate and onto the old Caravan road once more. The city falls away behind her, and ahead, the road stretches across the plain toward distant horizons. She walks for weeks through farming country, through small towns and villages, across bridges and along rivers. The landscape gradually changes, becoming drier, rockier, more austere. She is approaching the western desert, the twin of the eastern desert she crossed so many months ago, but larger, harsher, more difficult to cross. She hears warnings in every town. "Turn back," people tell her. "The western desert is unforgiving. Many enter, not all emerge. Wait for a caravan, travel with protection." But Layla has walked alone for 6 months now. She has crossed one desert, traversed high mountains, navigated the complexities of Crossroads. She has grown strong, capable, confident. She believes she can cross this final barrier. She enters the western desert on a cool morning in autumn, her pack heavy with supplies, her resolve firm. The first days are much like the eastern desert, hot, dry, challenging but manageable. She finds water where her map indicates oases should be. She maintains her rhythm of walking and resting. She feels competent, prepared. But on the 5th day, a sandstorm rises. It comes suddenly, a wall of sand and wind that reduces visibility to nothing, that scours exposed skin, that makes breathing difficult and navigation impossible. Layla takes shelter behind a large rock, wrapping her face and head against the stinging sand, and waits for the storm to pass. It lasts 2 days. When the wind finally dies and the air clears, Layla emerges from her shelter to find a transformed landscape. The dunes have shifted. Landmarks she was using for navigation have vanished. And worst of all, the road is gone, completely buried under new sand, indistinguishable from the desert around it. For the first time since beginning her journey, Layla feels genuine fear. She has lost the road. In the eastern desert, losing the road temporarily was frightening but manageable. She could search until she found it again, and she was never very far from civilization. Here, in the vast western desert, losing the road could mean losing her life. She forces herself to breathe, to think clearly, to remember everything she learned in the eastern desert. The sun rises in the east, sets in the west. She can navigate by that. The stars at night will guide her. Water lies to the northwest. She remembers this from her map, can aim for that general direction. She begins walking, trying to maintain a straight course, checking her direction by the sun's position, rationing her water carefully. Days blur together. Her supplies dwindle. She finds one small oasis, refills her water, rests for a day, then continues. But doubt creeps in. What if she's walking in the wrong direction? What if the map was inaccurate? What if she's slowly walking to her death in this vast, empty wilderness? On what she thinks is the 10th day after the storm, though she's lost precise count, Layla sits down in the sand and seriously considers giving up. She is exhausted, depleted, lost. Her lips are cracked, her skin burned despite her coverings, her body pushed beyond reasonable limits. She pulls out the smooth stone the old teacher gave her, holding it in her palm, feeling its familiar weight. And suddenly, she's crying, deep, racking sobs that shake her whole body. She cries for her grandmother, for her home, for the comfortable life she left behind. She cries for her naivety in thinking she could do this alone, her arrogance in believing herself capable of such a journey. But as the tears flow, something shifts. The crying becomes cathartic, releasing not just fear, but also the last remnants of who she used to be, the city girl who left home 6 months ago. That girl is gone, dissolved into the desert, transformed by the journey. What remains is someone harder, deeper, more real. Someone who has discovered reserves of strength she didn't know she possessed. Someone who has learned that comfort is not the same as happiness, that safety is not the same as living, that the hardest moments often precede the greatest breakthroughs. Layla wipes her tears, stands up, and starts walking again. She doesn't know if she'll survive, but she knows she won't survive by sitting still, by giving up, by surrendering to fear. So she walks. That night, she sees something on the horizon, a dark shape that might be rocks, might be trees, might be nothing but a hallucination born of desperation. But it's something to walk toward, a goal to aim for, and that's enough. She walks through the night, fueled by hope and determination and the last of her water. As dawn breaks, the shape resolves into reality, a large oasis, green and lush, with date palms and a wide pool of clear water. And beside the oasis, clearly visible now that the dawn light is strengthening, is the old Caravan road, emerging from the sand like a gift, like a blessing, like a promise kept. Layla doesn't run to it. She's too exhausted for that. But she walks steadily forward, tears streaming down her face again, these ones of relief and gratitude and triumph. She reaches the road, kneels, and presses her palms against its packed earth, feeling the indentations of 1,000 footsteps, the weight of all the journeys that have preceded hers. She rests at the oasis for 3 days, drinking deeply, eating the dates, sleeping in the shade of the palms. Her body recovers quickly. She's young and strong, and the privation, while severe, was not sustained long enough to cause permanent damage. On the 4th day, she begins walking again, following the road as it leads out of the desert and into scrubland, then grassland, then forests different from any she has seen before, dark pines that smell of resin, Massive oaks with trunks wider than her home city's gates, birch trees white as bone against the green. The road brings her to a city unlike any she has yet encountered. It is called End Road, and it sits at the western edge of the known world, where the old caravan road finally does end, or rather, transforms into something else. Here, the road meets the sea, and what was a terrestrial path becomes maritime routes, ship lanes, ocean currents carrying goods and people to islands and continents beyond the horizon. End Road is a port city, and everything about it speaks of departures and arrivals, of journeys ending and beginning, of the constant flux of human movement and trade and aspiration. The harbor is filled with ships of every size and design. The air smells of salt and fish and tar. The population is even more diverse than Crossroads, including sailors and traders from lands so distant their very names sound like myths. Layla finds lodging in a waterfront inn and spends her first days simply watching the harbor, watching ships come and go, watching goods and people flow in and out like tides. She has walked for 7 months now, crossed deserts and mountains and plains, grown from a sheltered city girl into a competent traveler, carried the journey from one edge of the known world to the other. And now she has reached an ending. Or is it a beginning? The old caravan road has brought her to the sea, and the sea offers its own roads, its own journeys, its own possibilities for transformation and discovery. One evening, sitting on the dock with her feet dangling above the water, Layla takes out the smooth stone and holds it up to catch the setting sun's light. The honey-colored striations seem to glow from within, beautiful and mysterious. A voice beside her says, "That's a powerful object you're holding." Layla turns to see an old sailor, weathered and scarred, his eyes the blue of deep water. "It's just a stone," she says, though she doesn't quite believe it. The sailor smiles. "Nothing is just anything. That stone has been held by many hands, carried on many journeys. I can see the marks of attention on it, the smoothness that comes from being touched with care and intention. Such objects become not exactly magical, but significant. They carry stories, memories, the essence of the journeys they witness." "Are you a philosopher as well as a sailor?" Layla asks, amused. "The sea makes philosophers of us all," he replies. "You can't spend years watching waves and winds without developing some thoughts about the nature of existence, change, permanence, impermanence, all those grand concepts we use to make sense of our brief time in this world." They sit in companionable silence for a while, watching the sun paint the water in gold and crimson. Then the sailor asks, "Will you cross the sea? Continue your journey across water instead of land?" Layla considers this. She has been asking herself the same question for days, unable to decide, feeling pulled in multiple directions. "I don't know," she admits. "Part of me wants to keep going, to see what lies beyond this edge. Part of me feels complete, ready to return home, to integrate what I've learned. Part of me wants to stay here, to make a new home in a place that exists at the boundary between land and sea, between the known and unknown." The sailor nods. "Those are all valid choices. There's no wrong answer, only different paths, each with its own consequences and gifts. But here's what I've learned in my years. The journey never truly ends. Even when we stop moving physically, we continue journeying internally. Even when we return home, we carry the road within us. Even when we settle, we remain, in some essential way, travelers." This thought comforts Layla somehow. Whatever she chooses, she will remain a walker of the old caravan road, changed by it, carrying its lessons, part of its eternal flow of human aspiration and movement. That night, she dreams of her grandmother. The old woman sits in her city garden, surrounded by flowering plants, her face peaceful in the evening light. She looks up as Layla approaches, and her smile is radiant with love and recognition. "You've walked far, child," she says. "I have," Layla replies, "but I'm not sure where to walk next." The grandmother pats the bench beside her, and Layla sits, feeling like a child again, safe and protected. "The road has taught you well," the grandmother says. "You've learned strength, presence, wisdom. But there's one more lesson, perhaps the most important. The lesson of return, of integration, of bringing the gifts of the journey back to the community." "You want me to come home?" Layla asks. "I want you to choose what your heart most deeply desires," the grandmother replies. "But remember, the journey's purpose is not escape, but transformation. And transformation is not complete until it serves something beyond the self, until it flows back into the world as wisdom, compassion, service." Layla wakes with tears on her cheeks, but also with clarity. She knows what she must do. She books passage on a ship sailing east along the coast. It will take her to a port city connected by caravan routes to her home. From there, she can walk back across familiar paths, completing the circle, returning to where she began, but bringing with her everything she has learned and become. The sea voyage takes 2 weeks. Layla discovers that she likes being on the water, the constant motion, the vast horizons, the sense of being suspended between earth and sky. She makes friends among the crew and passengers, sharing stories of her land journey, hearing tales of ocean adventures. When the ship docks at the eastern port, Layla disembarks with a strange mix of emotions: excitement, nervousness, anticipation. She joins a caravan heading inland, a large group of merchants and families. After so long traveling alone, the companionship feels both comforting and slightly claustrophobic. The caravan travels for 2 months, following well-established routes. As they draw closer to Layla's home region, the landscape becomes increasingly familiar. She recognizes mountains in the distance, the particular quality of light, the style of buildings in the villages they pass through. And then, one afternoon, the caravan crests a hill, and there it is, her city, white walls gleaming in the sun, exactly as she left it 8 months ago. 8 months. It feels like a lifetime, like she's been gone for years, like she's a completely different person from the girl who walked through the western gate so long ago. The caravan enters the city through the eastern gate. Layla separates from the group, thanking them for the company, and makes her way through familiar streets that feel simultaneously known and strange. Everything is the same market stalls, the same fountains, the same calls of vendors, but she is different, and that difference makes everything look new. She reaches her grandmother's house as the sun begins to set. The door is weathered but sturdy, the garden visible through the gate still blooming with flowers. Layla stands outside for a moment, suddenly nervous. What if her grandmother is angry? What if she's changed? What if the connection between them has been broken by time and distance? But then the door opens, and there is her grandmother, looking older and more fragile, but with the same bright eyes, the same warm smile. They stand looking at each other for a long moment, and then Layla is running, crossing the space between them, falling into her grandmother's embrace. They hold each other, crying and laughing, not speaking because words are inadequate for what they're feeling. Finally, the grandmother pulls back, holding Layla at arm's length, studying her face. "You've walked the old caravan road," she says. It's not a question. "I have," Layla replies, "and it has changed you, as I knew it would. You are no longer the restless girl who left. You are a woman who has discovered herself, tested herself, proven herself. Welcome home, traveler, welcome home." In the days that follow, Layla settles back into city life, but she is not the same person living the same life. She takes a position at the city's library, working with ancient texts and maps. She begins writing about her journey, not as a simple travelogue, but as a meditation on transformation, presence, and the nature of the road as teacher. She also starts teaching, offering classes on desert survival, on navigation by stars, on the philosophical aspects of journeying. Young people come to her, drawn by her experiences, asking for advice about their own potential journeys. And one day, a young man approaches her in the market. He is perhaps 18, restless and uncertain, with questions in his eyes. "I've heard about your journey," he says, "about how you walked the old caravan road alone. I'm thinking about doing something similar. Would you tell me what it's like? What I should expect?" Layla invites him to sit, and over tea, she shares her story. Not just the events, but the internal journey, the transformations, the lessons. The young man listens with the same intensity she once brought to her grandmother's words. When she finishes, he asks, "Do you think I should go? Am I ready?" Layla smiles, remembering how she asked her grandmother the same question. Ready is not a state you achieve before the journey. Ready is what you become during the journey. The question is not whether you're ready, but whether you're willing to be uncomfortable, to be challenged, to be changed. If you are, then go. The road will teach you the rest. And so the cycle continues. Layla, who was once the student, becomes the teacher. The one who received the blessing now offers blessings. The traveler becomes the elder, the guide, the keeper of the tradition. But she has not stopped journeying. Every day she walks through the city with full presence, noticing everything, approaching each moment as its own small journey. She has learned that the road is not just a physical path, but a state of being, a way of moving through the world with openness and attention. Some years later, when her grandmother is very old and nearing the end of her life, Layla sits beside her bed, holding her hand. The old woman's breath is shallow, her grip weak, but her eyes remain bright. "I'm proud of you," the grandmother whispers. "You walked the road I always wanted to walk but never did. You became who you needed to become, and now you offer others what I offered you: permission, encouragement, blessing." "I couldn't have done it without you," Layla says, tears streaming down her face. "Your blessing carried me, protected me, reminded me who I was and what I was capable of." The grandmother smiles. "Then perhaps my journey was not the physical road, but the blessing I gave you. Perhaps I traveled through you, saw through your eyes, learned through your experiences. We are all connected, child. Your journey was also mine. Your transformation transformed me." That night, the grandmother dies peacefully in her sleep. Layla grieves deeply but without regret. The old woman lived fully, loved completely, and passed on something precious: the tradition of blessing, of encouraging, of sending the young out into the world with courage and faith. And Layla continues the tradition. She grows older, wiser, more grounded. She never makes another long journey. Once was enough, the transformation complete. But she sends others out, blesses them, encourages them, and welcomes them home when they return, listening to their stories, helping them integrate their experiences. The smooth stone from the old teacher still sits on her mantle, catching the light, reminding her daily of the journey that shaped her life. And when she is very old, when a young woman comes to her with familiar questions in her eyes, Layla will pass the stone on, continuing its journey through human hands, across human lives, serving always as a reminder that transformation is possible, that journeys matter, that the old caravan road still calls to those brave enough to answer. Sleep.